evening, my friends. This is Lisa, your favorite spoon bunny, and welcome back to the Life Spoontastic. I'm going to read an article to you that I found interesting on the rsdsa website. That's rsdsa.org. And it is by the licensed psychologist, Dr. Phyliss Shanken, MA. And it is entitled Support for People with CRPS. And I'm going to go ahead and read it to you, and then I'm going to offer a little bit of my own perspective once I'm done, okay? So here it is. I wrote an article about my personal experience with CRPS that appeared in Advance for Physical Therapists and for Occupational Therapists in 1993. In response to that article, I received phone calls from CRPS sufferers who wanted to talk, who felt isolated and confused about this disease. I have spent hours on the phone listening, supporting, and giving guidance on ways to deal with CRPS. As a result, I have been sharing my ideas on how to cope with chronic and acute physical and emotional pain. If those who responded to my last article are representative of CRPS sufferers in general, then we can assume that you had symptoms of CRPS well before you were diagnosed. You probably saw an orthopedic surgeon, a family doctor, a rheumatologist, or a neurologist, and not necessarily in that order. And at first, when you eventually learned of the diagnosis, you were probably relieved because finally there was a name for your suffering. Then you assumed that the crazy feeling that you had begun to experience, as well as the doubting looks that you had been getting from loved ones, could finally be put aside. You felt dependent on people who didn't seem to know all that much. You craved information and hung on to your doctor's, physical or occupational therapist's every word. Yet you didn't want to hear what you feared was the truth. Maybe you finally found a CRPS specialist who told you to learn to live with it. Somehow you had not developed the skills you needed to live with it. You were overwhelmed. You felt immobilized because this problem erupted out completely without warning. You were innocently living your life, and then boom, out of control. This is the first phase of the predictable life stages that occur with any crisis or change, according to Roger Gould, MD, who wrote Transformations. He calls this phase immobilization. Internally, you were stamping your feet saying, I don't want to have to handle this. It's not fair. The next stage is minimization. Now I have a name for it, so I'll be okay. We need this stage so that we can build a cocoon around us to help us build up our resources for the long road ahead. As you moved out of the denial phase, you may have experienced depression, which is based on the reality that you have no way out of this, and coping with it is just asking too much. You feel down and unable to move on. Then you shifted into the frustration phase, acknowledging that you have CRPS and you don't have the ability to change it. There's an old Chinese proverb, when you have a disease, do not try to cure it. Find your center and allow for healing. Or, as Bill Moyer says, healing is possible even when cure is not. When you face the emotional pain of being told you have CRPS, and the physical pain of this disease makes you feel so out of control, try to allow for healing without trying too hard to control that which is uncontrollable. When you get into the center of pain, when you relax and allow the sensations to take you over, it doesn't hurt so much. Pain is actually resistance. Bracing yourself merely magnifies the pain. Therefore, try to investigate the pain rather than attempting to eliminate it. Is the pain sharp or dull? Cold or hot? Suppose you could draw the pain. What colors would you use? Flow with your feelings. And here are some guidelines. Position yourself to embrace the disease. Even though it may not be true, assume that you'll have CRPS for the rest of your life. This resignation may work to prevent you from having to fight so hard against the realities of physical and emotional pain. When you let go and stop fighting, often pain subsides and CRPS feeds on pain. Isn't it ironic? It's by assuming that you won't get better that you have the best chance to get better. Work through all the aspects of CRPS so that you redefine yourself. I am a person who lives with certain kinds of sensations, whereas other people don't have them. I'll have good days and bad days, but I will handle it. I will try to make myself as comfortable as possible and seek out ingenious ways to survive. I will be proud of these creative solutions to a heretofore uncontrollable situation as I define and take charge of the areas where I do have control. Some of the solutions might be ways to use pillows to prop your affected limbs, ways to use your TENS unit or your spinal cord stimulator unit so that it's not too conspicuous, wearing gloves or using heating pads, whatever works for you. Give up what you can't control. The diagnosis is here. The swelling is visible. And no matter how hard you stare at it, it won't go away. So maybe you ought to stop focusing on it. In fact, your morbid fascination with how your affected area looks might actually cause more trouble. As much as possible, forget that you have the disease, in the sense that you need to make your response to CRPS a way of life. Try not to think of yourself as an invalid. Share with people who love you so that you can be nurtured, but try not to milk it too much. I know it's difficult for some of us, especially on those flare days. And when I say try not to focus on the pain and forget you have the disease, I recognize the contradiction. This means accepting the reality of your disease, then working on letting go of all the resistance, the protest and hysteria that impedes your ability to submit to, yet take charge of this crisis in your life. You can't let go of the feelings until you allow yourself to feel them. Much of what I have said fits into the final stages of Dr. Gould's sequences of change. Eventually, you get to acceptance of reality. You can now say, I have CRPS. Then you ask, now, how am I going to live with this disease? This is the testing phase. I wonder what it will be like now that I have to use a cane to walk, or a rolling walker. The next phase is searching for meaning. Now that I have accepted that I have CRPS and I'm learning ways to deal with it, I want to see how to make sense out of why this happened to me and how it will affect my view of myself. Maybe I'll write a book about it to help other people. Maybe I'll start a support group. Maybe I'll start a YouTube channel. Other people have handled this. I guess I can too. I'll have a unique way of handling it. The last phase is internalization, where you incorporate the change into your behavior and your perception of the world. The point where you have worked through the conflict. You no longer have to concentrate, test, question, or marvel over your condition. Instead of feeling defective because of CRPS, you can now say, I just need special aids to make myself comfortable. I'm unique in this way. Also, consider psychotherapy. It can help in terms of adjusting to the stress of the disease. Learning why you might have resistance to coping with the pain, and other problems that may erupt in your life as a result of the isolation and rejection by others. You may have had some problems before the CRPS that are now coming to the fore. Your personality may be the type that inhibits healing. Perhaps you haven't been tested like this before. Your coping mechanisms aren't working the way they used to. Look for other areas of your life where you have difficulty giving up control. It's okay to be angry, but then you need to move on and take joy in the way you've adjusted to the situation. If you remain stuck in the angry, frustrated, self-pity place, then you should consider psychotherapy. In general, those who can accept the fact that all is not lost if things don't go their way are most likely to reach the internalization stage. And that's where, that's the stage where people can be of most help to others. By understanding the process you go through when faced with any crisis, you can say, I'm depressed right now. This is where I need to be at the moment, so that I can work through all the feelings I am to experience, and eventually I can go back to living my normal. The more you allow yourself to flow with the inevitable emotions involved with change, the more your self-assurance emerges and the greater your ability to confront the unavoidable stresses of life, including CRPS. Dr. Phyliss Shanken is a licensed psychologist in Pennsylvania and director of psychological services of Introspect in Montgomery County in Colmar, Pennsylvania, a psychological and psychiatric practice facility. She also maintains a private psychotherapy practice. Now, when it comes to, what she has said in this article, you have to go through all of these various stages of not only through the stages of grief, but also being able to embrace not only your physical pain, but your emotional pain in dealing with this disorder, with CRPS, and even with chronic pain in general. No matter what disorder you might have, you need to accept it and understand, I might have this disorder for the rest of my life. And the more you fight it, the more you resist it, the more pain you may experience as a result. And by embracing it instead and learning to accept it and for lack of a better word, internalize it and make it a part of you. You can essentially understand yourself better and become stronger and more capable of helping others that are dealing with their new normal. And honestly, if you could reach a point where you can help even one more person to understand and deal with their pain, it becomes worth it at that point. You know, one young lady in particular reached out to me and thanked me for making some of my videos, because she shared them with a loved one, and her loved one watched my videos and apparently reached a point where he gave her a call and apologized to her for being insensitive and for being essentially for not believing her when she told him, you know, that she was in pain and that she was struggling. So she reached out to me and she thanked me for making my videos, and I was just floored, because here I was thinking that, you know, I wasn't making a difference, that I wasn't helping anybody, that I was sort of just talking to myself here on my channel. But it was just like this miracle moment for me. So you never know whose life you might be changing by reaching out and lending, you know, that sort of helping hand, even if you don't always understand or accept, or even if you're still struggling with your disorder, you just never know whose life might be changed by hearing your story. So no matter where you are in your journey, you know, just sort of share it. Share your journey, share your story, and help whoever, you know, help everyone that you can. You never know just who might need it at that time, at that moment in time. So I will leave you with that. Until next time, my friends, this is the Spoon Bunny signing off. May your spoons be plenty and your troubles be few. Have a great night.